One. Can we start?
Yeah, let's go ahead and start.
All right.
Thanks everybody for coming. As you can tell, I am remote tonight from sunny Florida. We finally have decent weather down here. It's been kind of cool and wet the last week or so, but now it's sunny Florida. Now maybe I will get that sunburn. Let's try to follow our agenda, even though maybe some of the guests aren't here. We'll just roll along for who is here. First things first, let's hopefully you've all received the minutes, even though I did send them out very late last night. But they were brief and just advise you to watch the video of the last meeting. Trying to do things. Okay, can I get a motion to accept the minutes from the February meeting?
Okay, we have a first motion to approve the minutes coming from here.
Okay. Any discussion about the minutes? Any questions about the minutes?
Sorry. We have a second from Eastgate.
Okay. Let's see. All those in favor of accepting the minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Meetings are accepted unanimously. All right. Do we have
Sergeant Garcia is
guest
not
list?
here yet.
We do not have our guests. Okay. I see David is here. Let's see. So
And Mr.
we
Silver's here also.
good. We will temporarily skip the police report. Maybe Sergeant Garcia will sign on. He is virtual tonight. And is Randy present? Randy Jones.
Yeah. Hello, Larry.
Oh, hi,
Randy?
Randy.
Randy,
You're
you're
up.
up.
This is Randy Jones, who is leading up the efforts to determine what we can do about Kane's rezoning. Randy, you have the floor.
Oh, it's 7:30.
Well,
Well,
the police
you're
guy's
early and
done.
we're early.
Do you need a moment?
Uh,
Do you need the restrooms or back?
no. I just like to be able to sit and relax. I'm Randy. How many members of Midtown Neighbors United? How many have joined? I said, thank you. I'm Randy Jones, along with Larry. We organized Midtown Neighbors United in response to what was going on with the rezoning in North Hills that was recently approved. And we really formed it to again take, well, it really formed after the rezoning decision, I guess I should say, after we all made a lot of efforts to impact that rezoning. And really, I learned in that process that there really actually wasn't much we could do to impact that rezoning. It was pretty much, it's a 5-month process that was specifically designed to get that rezoning approved. And so despite, I think, our best efforts, and Larry worked hard on it, and I submitted comments, many of you probably submitted comments, you probably might have gone to the public hearing. And again, it wasn't a process that was designed to really address these concerns. So we formed a group, we raised some money, and we talked to some lawyers. And if any of you are aware, today, March 23rd, is 60 days from, or it's really, well, 60 days from the date that the city council approved the rezoning, and any lawsuits needed to be filed by today for that rezoning. And after studying it for the past month, we decided not to file suit. But that doesn't mean let me say this. It's expensive, it's time consuming, and the outcome's very uncertain, no matter what kind of case you have. I'm a lawyer by training, and so I understand all those things, but we did want to look at it and see what kind of a case we could make. And just one evaluation, we have limited resources. I really am going to take on battles I know I can win. And the legal battle wasn't one that I was positive we would win. So we've chosen not to file suit, but that's not the end of it for us. The rezoning's been approved, and now Kane will have to come up with site plans for each of these buildings that they're planning to build. And with the resources we do have, and thanks to contributions from some of you and other people, we have We have a fund that will help us continue to follow this case and try to find ways to make sure that the Midtown community's voices are heard. I mean, that's what it's all about to me. I'm more about results. I'm not, because I'm a lawyer, but I'm not about suing people just for the good of suing it. And since I think we're more likely to get some results by continuing to find a way to establish a dialogue. Nothing about the process that we just went through with the rezoning that resembled any kind of a public process I'm familiar with, and certainly wasn't one that gave us a chance to have a true dialogue with the city, particularly the developer if you want, but I mean, by dialogue, I mean a give and take. I mean a back and forth. I mean people listening to each other and understanding what they're saying and trying to find, if not common ground, at least some kind of mutual understanding. And so our understanding, I just want to talk about our understanding coming out of the rezoning process, which was what and you probably won't have heard of this number. We estimate that the moment that rezoning was approved by the city council, the developer experienced a $400 million increase in the value of that property. $400 million. That's a lot of money. That's a lot of money in any place. So, you know, developers are in it to make money, they make improvements, they do good things. Nobody's objecting to the fact that the developer will make money. But at that level of money, you start to wonder, well, what did we get? And what we got was $1 million for affordable housing somewhere else, not in this community, not for the people that are gonna be working in, you know, service people, people work in North Hills, they have to go somewhere else to live, find a place to live because people can't afford to live around. So $1 million out of 400, that's 0.25% of that increase. So these are things going to daylight. I guess I'm going to say as I go through these things, going forward, we're going to daylight all these things. We went to the city really, I mean, I don't know if the city even understood what kind of a gift that was to the developer. So we want to daylight that kind of issue, make sure that people understand what we've got in return. We've got $500,000 for the fire department, buy a half a fire truck probably. And 40,000 square feet of, I would agree, is astroturf. And one of my pet peeves is, and all that, amongst all that astroturf, you won't find any public restrooms anywhere. You will find pet relief stations though. They are required, that's one of the choices they can make in their play spaces. We got $0 for traffic and transit. I want to talk a little bit about that because if you were at the meeting, the city council deferred the traffic issue to the Transit and Transportation Committee. That committee didn't meet until after they approved the rezoning, so it was kind of pointless anyway. But at that meeting, if you haven't heard, the city basically decided we're not going to measure congestion anymore in North Hills. You know, if you have a level of service that is out, they're not going to use something called travel time, which is the time it gets from Lynn Road to the Belt. Meaning they don't care if there's congestion in North Hills. If it's 2 more minutes from Lynn Road to Beltline, there's 2 minutes are going to be in the North Hills area. They're not going to be further up towards the north. So they're going to go all the way down. And this is after they canceled the Six Forks Road expansion project. And to be honest with you, what they really understood is it can't be fixed. They can't fix Six Forks, not going to do that. These level of service numbers we have for all these intersections around North Hills, those can't be fixed either. I mean, a couple turn lanes here and there really won't fix the problem. And I think they ultimately understood that. And now they changed the measurement. That's like move the goalpost, change the measurement. And I think, I'll talk about it in a minute. This is all a paper exercise. You know, they've whipped all the numbers around to make it seem like there wasn't much of an increase in traffic due to these 4 tall towers. But I can tell you, even in their numbers, it's 20 to 30,000 cars a day coming out of these buildings onto Six Forks and Lassiter and Millbrook. So, yeah, all that, and again, no money for transportation or transit. They speak to the future transit. They call this a transit-oriented development, but it really is going to be a gridlock-oriented development for the next 10 years, assuming they ever complete the bus rapid transit system, of which the north system that we would be on is not funded, just in early stages of development. All these BRTs depend on federal funding, which is certainly, uncertain at this point. So part of what we want to do, I think, immediately is say, okay, you say these transit improvements are coming, but what happens in the meantime? I mean, I'm 70, so in 10 years, I don't know what it's gonna look like, but we who live here in the neighborhoods have to deal with this for the next 10 years now. The traffic grows every day. I live up a whole Lassiter Mill Road. Just anecdotal, but since the new main expansion opened, we have greatly increased traffic on Lassiter Mill Road. And they put a 20-story tower at Currituck and Lassiter Mill Road. That traffic is not gonna go towards Six Forks where it's already jammed, it's gonna come down Lassiter Mill Road. And again, the city talks about planning for the future, and we're doing this for the future, but I see other than the building is developed for the future, I see very little other effort to plan for the future. And I don't know if it's by design or not, but it's just, if you believe in bus rapid transit, I've got some 20-year-old documents on light rail that you can read about what happened to that, never happened. Bus rapid transit, we don't have the right circumstances here, and a little bit of studying and what other cities have done. Where it's been successful, they have dedicated lanes. And there's no sign of any way they'll come up with dedicated lanes for the Six Forks bus rapid transit.
What about the multimodal bridge?
What about the same thing? I mean,
They've already spent the planning money on that. I mean,
yeah.
I know nobody here will like it, but the plan is to punch Quail Hollow right through and across.
Yeah, well, and I don't, it's still in conceptual phase where I can tell. Yeah, I mean, I agree.
Moving forward.
I agree, but I don't see how how that multimodal, it's for pedestrians and bikes.
But so again, the big plan is to move some of the traffic that's on Six Forks onto Quail Hollow and go across that way.
But the Quail Hollow property at the dead end there where it goes over the creek, I believe that area got rezoned and perpetuity shouldn't be built on or become a road through because of the flooding. Of course, this was back in the 70s. 80s.
Good, bad, or ugly. These things are years down the road. The city said it's on the timeline. Oh, it's in the early 2030s, but I don't believe it. I just don't believe there's too much to do. And this multimodal bridge, I mean, again, the assumption must be that the cars are going somewhere else because it's not really meant as a car passageway, I don't think. And
It is. It's
and then people are going to drive around North Hills.
So just like North Ridge has Hunting Ridge and Harps Mill,
Yeah.
they're gonna punch right through Quail Hollow, whether anybody wants to be told that or not, and go over the bridge,
Okay.
and it'll be another route through.
And I think we should talk about that. I'm on Lassiter Mill Road, and I don't think on those roads, they may have traffic calming. That's right in the middle of the neighborhood. In Lassiter Mill Road, I expect that if this goes forward, somewhere down the line, it'll be a 4-lane road. And people are like, how could that be? Well, go look at other cities where they built developments like this. The big problem is that everybody's focused on Six Forks. The city, the developers, they're talking about Six Forks. They gave up one, trying to improve it. They said, we're just not going to measure that. We're going to measure travel time. And, that's it. Well, traffic has to go somewhere. As it increases over the next 10 years before anything else happens, if there's any transit or any multimodal grid or anything, all that traffic is going to bleed off on the safer roads, Rowan, Quail Hollow, Lassiter Mill in particular. I'm very concerned about Lassiter Mill, and it's not even in the plan. They don't have any plan for Lassiter Mill Road. And I think, again, what we want to do going forward is we got to keep up. I mean, we just weren't able to effectively interact with the city in this rezoning process. What I really want to do is find ways to effectively interact, have dialogue, so we can surface these issues. And they say, no increased traffic. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about what it means when you say there's no increased traffic, and that number, that's completely off the paper. The paper, entitlements and an entitlement to this traffic that isn't there today, and minus that entitlement, there's no increased traffic, but the actual real life traffic impacts on Lassiter Mill, North, Six Forks, all these roads are going to be real. You can't take 30,000 cars in these tall towers and put them out on the streets and think they're going to get absorbed. And now, if there's no increased traffic on Six Forks like they claim, it's only because it's been siphoned off somewhere else. And I know the biggest lie is that traffic hasn't increased in North Hills, and it's because all these towers that are there now are absorbing traffic. There's internal trips and all that. The biggest reason there's no increase in North Hills is because 540 was built. I used to live in North Raleigh. Everybody had to go through Six Forks. That's 25 years ago. Well, they finished 540 in the meantime. A lot of traffic. that would have gone to Sixth Ward is now going up there. So where's all the traffic now? It's coming from the development around North Hills and just general increases in traffic. So, you know, we need to have a dialogue, and during the rezoning process, there was no dialogue. We submitted comments, went to a public hearing, you might have got to speak for a minute or two, maybe three. That's not a dialogue. We want to be able to ask questions, have answers, be able to respond to those. It's how planning used to be done. I don't know how it's gonna be done going forward in Raleigh. I don't think that they're necessarily used to, well, nobody's used to this kind of development, I gotta say. This is a mega development. This is about $1 billion, I figure about $1 billion in investment. Big investment for Kane, but $1 million for affordable housing on $1 billion investment with a $400 million increase in the value of its property. We just want to daylight these issues and say, how can we talk about what's happening in our neighborhoods today? You know, we'll talk later about what's going to happen 10 or 20 years from now. We're talking about when these things get built, as they're getting built. It's another issue. I don't know how you build a tower on the corner of Currituck and Lasser Mill without creating huge disruption in that whole area for however long it takes to build the thing. And when they're done, if you've noticed the Highland Apartments with their loading dock right in front of the neighborhood, they're right across the street from one of our members. And it's not a big enough loading dock, so they park trucks on the street, they put dumpsters on the street, they use the street as a private amenity for themselves. Call the police, they say, talk to Kane, or they say, where do you expect them to put these things? Well, you expect them to put them in some place that they built on their property to contain their stuff. So again, in this planning process, the site plan process, I think we're intending to pay real attention to what they're saying, what they're planning for, how it fits with the reality, as opposed to the rosy picture that was painted during the rezoning process at the public hearing, of all the benefits. We get those benefits, but now let's talk about what the costs of the community are of those benefits, and can we have a conversation about that? I gotta say again, if I thought we had a slam dunk little case, that would be one thing, but to litigate for years and maybe have nothing come of it versus trying to have a dialogue with the city, that's what I want to do. I'm all about dialogue. I'm all about back and forth, all about trying to find solutions. And, you know, if we don't engage in dialogue, somehow they'll just roll right over us. If we go to sleep or we say about something to do about it, they will definitely, I know that will be the result. They'll definitely roll over us. I'll have a mess there. And I think we want to just daylight the mess, which we weren't able to do during the rezoning process because it wasn't a process that was designed to really allow us to do that.
So Randy, what are the next steps then for Midtown Neighbors United?
Well, I didn't bring my list, but again, what the main thing is to get involved, maybe as soon as the budgeting process. I don't see any of our council people here. Are any of the councilors coming today?
Mitchell Silver's online.
Oh, hi, Mitchell, sorry. We want to find ways to engage people, maybe in the budgeting process, certainly in this site plan process, to how we can get involved, and again, hopefully have a dialogue. You know, I don't want it to be adversarial.
Dialogue when they won't even listen to you or read the letters that you write. I mean, we've written, each one of us has written so many letters.
No, I agree in that.
And they don't even.
Yeah. Well, when I say we're going to daylight these issues, we're going to daylight them. I mean, the city presumably knows these things. Actually, when I say we daylight it, we're going to daylight it to the public. We're going to daylight it to the media. We're going to put it out there and hopefully create incentives, if you will, or create an environment where the city feels like it's in their best interest to engage in dialogue. Because again, it's not just about our community, it's really, to me, about the future of Raleigh, what we want Raleigh to look like, how we want to treat the communities in Raleigh when we do these kinds of things, and to just have have great plans that are then kind of voluntary, or they can be, conditions can be amended so the plans don't really do what the neighbors thought they were going to do when they approve them. We want to have a way to have mechanisms for ongoing dialogue. Right now, all I know to do is, again, daylight that. We all got lives to live, right? We're a new organization. So all I can say is we have a plan to daylight these issues, try and engage the public, engage people so they understand what has happened, because people just don't pay attention. And that's a challenge. It's a challenge because, again, the rezoning process, not by design. for the kinds of comments, concerns we've had, it wasn't designed to address those concerns. It just wasn't. We submitted lots of comments and concerns. There was no dialogue about those concerns. So it's all new for me. I haven't been involved before in this kind of thing, but all I know is how to try and keep at it, to try and get people to listen. They haven't listened to us so far. I think there's good reasons why they should want to listen to us, and hopefully we can engage in a process that will allow us to do that.
Do you have an ask for this group?
Join MNU. Go online, midtownneighborsunited.org. The more people we have, the louder that voice will be, the more effective we can be in saying that, you know, we have this support from the broader community. This is what we'd like to have happen in our community. You know, I think, as far as I'm concerned.
But if the councilmen that are supposed to represent us, or the councilwomen that are supposed to represent us, aren't representing us, they're representing the big developers. And they're getting paid by the big developers.
Right, all I can say is, you know, you can go with the elections, right? Go with elections, but I would say, you know, actually, I've talked to some single issue voters, it's their only issue, they're only gonna vote on this, but, you know, that's a process, takes some time. People, you know, this is so near in time, you know, they may file site plans before the next election, or, you know, issues change, you know, a councilor might be on my side for every issue but this one, and some people, it's not that big of a deal, so I encourage people to make development issues an important thing in an election. But for me, we're on this process. We're concerned about exactly what's going on in North Hills right now. And my lawsuit takes years. Changing the composition of a council can take years.
But it might stop them, at least help them at the moment.
Which?
You had the lawsuit. What is it, just?
No.
No, they keep moving. They don't have to stop developing just because you follow.
Well, then if we had looked at something and said, oh, we can stop them with this, then that would have been something we would
I mean,
do.
just to stay at least until the lawsuit
It's not necessarily,
comes to
it's-
conclusion.
not necessarily, no.
Oh.
I would say, we didn't find anything that would allow us to be confident by filing a lawsuit, we could stop it and stay. It's just, you know, it's one of my lines, and I forgot to say it is, it may be legal, that doesn't mean it's right or wise or in the best interests of the community. Of Raleigh, said the city of Raleigh.
Yeah, but you're not even, I mean, to your own point, you're not even having the conversation right now. Let's take 42046 which is Eastern and Advanced Auto Shops. That generated 1.5 million in tax revenue last year.
Yeah.
And housed hundreds of people.
Mhm.
So when you talk about fair budgeting and representing people,
Right.
these big buildings, when the city makes this decision, it's not just John Kane that makes money,
Right.
the city makes
I
a ton of money.
I understand.
Well,
We're tax-paying people
Okay,
also,
again,
and we're
so-
paying our taxes.
so let's-
we're paying
so-
for the roads,
He's not
the
arguing
right
with
to-
you.
I'm
He's
not arguing,
arguing
but I
with
will
you.
point out, if you, for example, live on a half acre off Lassiter Mill, and I adjust for the 2.6 acres that is the Eastern, that would
Yeah.
only be $50,000. So there is a revenue decision that has to be done on a per acre value in a fast growing city that has to house hundreds of thousands of new people in the next 20
Let's
years.
sit down and have a
I get it,
extended dialogue.
I get it.
You can make your points, I can make our points, we can go back and forth, we can talk,
The city has strong financials to do this type of work. It's not like it's a random decision, is my only point. Many people supported it for the reasons I just gave.
I understand that.
You can come and live in my house right across the street.
Yeah,
It's still good, okay? Yes.
All right, let's,
hello.
That
Hello
doesn't
back
change
there.
money or men.
Well, there's different,
Okay,
you know,
so, I think we're almost out of time.
That's
sadly, for you.
that's okay, I didn't, this one, I
Would
just
there
want,
anybody have any other particular questions for Midtown Neighbors United? Or how they might get involved?
I would make an observation that if we go back to 1962 or 68, there was no belt line. This was all a rural area served by rural roads and no suburbs or anything here. And you go forward half a century and our thoroughfares are still these rural roads with a couple lanes added.
Yeah.
But we don't have nearly enough through streets to manage the population density.
Yeah.
And all the people who are trying to preserve the neighborhoods want to prevent those through streets from happening. They're trying to prevent people from cutting through on their streets, and so then they go on someone else's street. And it's impossible to deal with it. I think the reality is we've got the future of this area is you've got to realize this is the middle of the city, the geographic middle of the city here. And it's going to be a million.
Without the infrastructure of the middle of the
With
city.
no infrastructure for it, and the infrastructure has got to change, and so you really have to change it in a way that's gonna be least disruptive. And what we've been doing, you know, we've been not helping, it's been making it worse. You look at Hardemont, it's obscene what has been done to that street. That those bridges, you know, to get across the Beltline, they would keep traffic off of Six Forks and off of Lake Forest Road, because the people who live in this neighborhood could go across and go to Wegmans without having to get onto those busy streets. And people who live out in Northeast aren't gonna come through a neighborhood to get across there. But it would help, but you've gotta think bigger than just this neighborhood to make it better, otherwise we'll continue to make it worse. The traffic calming makes it worse. The planners are ignoring truly dangerous areas. Where are people being hit by cars or over School Road, Rockwell Road, you know, places that are thoroughfares with inadequate lights, no sidewalks and stuff, and the real danger areas are just not being looked at. So it's
There's no easy answers.
No easy
answer, you know. There's just no easy answer, and that means it requires thought, conversation, analysis, and not just, I mean, the developer has a ton of lawyers, all their marketers, all their people doing all their analysis. The city has a big staff. The neighborhood has Larry and MNU and you folks who don't necessarily have the resources to respond to all the claims are. And we're going to try our best to try and not level the playing field, but again, at least daylight these issues. I'm happy to have a conversation about the value of what's been built and what's happened over the years and how it's, you know, made things better. We can have that conversation, but it can't be with a dismissal of all the concerns that you all have about traffic and the way these things are fitting in to North Hills. I'll say one thing, in any urban area I'm aware of, you don't build all the buildings with the back of the buildings on the main streets. They're facing into the private development, creating a private enclave there with tall buildings straight up, no entrances, and it's, you know, that's not walkable. It might be walkable inside in the private area. It's not walkable on the public streets because you got giant buildings and you have mass, you know, traffic. So just all we want is a conversation about that. The rezoning process specifically was designed to avoid that. They're specifically decided.
Process itself, like addressing the process. I remember Larry saying something about the last iteration of this building or proposition that they actually voted on that last time did not have the transitions or setbacks that were in all of the other ones. They dangled the $1 million and the map, you know, you had all these things so that you weren't focused on that having exactly what it was supposed to have. And they said there's been other buildings that have been built by Kane that don't have the transitions and setbacks.
Well, the Highlands apartment, what I'm talking about, it's 12 stories straight up from Leicester Mill Road.
Exactly. So how can they do that? Like, I mean, what about the process where you're having city council, you have to go through an engineering, you know, looking at the engineering to make sure that all those things are in place before they're voting. They're just people that work in the community that don't know anything about engineering voting on these big projects.
And they change it the last time
minute.
it goes through.
That's right. Yeah, and then, you know,
Nobody
you're
knows
voting on
the
it, which is
change.
giving Kane permission to now build it without the transitions and setbacks they're supposed to have. So
There's
we're
a
not
question-
addressing the process.
Yeah, well, again, we're stuck with it, you know,
Are we?
we're stuck with this process right now because they got the approval.
Yeah.
So, but I'm saying, I think we're in a daylight. If they're gonna put a loading dock on the street and expect trucks to park on the street, we're gonna point that kind of thing out and say, that's private use of public
But
property.
these are rules that we have right now regarding transitions and setbacks that were not included in this.
I know, but I'll tell you, talk to the lawyers, and this is a legislative decision by the council. It's very hard to overturn.
Is that
They-
right?
And we've got
And they
Mitchell
appro-
Silver online, he maybe can respond to that, can we get one question back?
Yeah.
I just want to put a comment out there. Earlier in the conversation, you said that you suspect that a lot of traffic may get diverted to Quail Hollow Road
No,
with this expansion. And if that happens, wouldn't that run counter to the Quail Hollow Green Street that's coming up, where they're going to now have a dual cycle track running all along the east side of Quail Hollow? If we're gonna have that and other traffic coming, and you're gonna divert a lot more traffic onto Quail Hollow, that's not making sense for
all
Quail
this,
Hollow.
all this stuff is worthy of, it should be talked about. Forget the law. The law is what gave us that rezoning. So I'm more like, let's talk reality. Let's talk the sense. If this means all traffic gonna get pushed off, let's talk about it. If traffic gets pushed to the side streets, what do we do about that, Raleigh? You just, that's okay, because this is an urban center and this is how Raleigh's decided to grow, but we're not gonna care about the streets around the whole development, the neighborhoods around the development.
Yeah, my video is disabled, but what I can say, Larry, it may make sense at a future meeting. This is Mitchell Silver speaking, to have a presentation on the Midtown Multimodal Bridge so people understand exactly where it's connected. So I think that would be beneficial. Right now, it's in design. It is not funded beyond design. But you can see exactly where that connection, it will be multimodal for cars, for bikes, for pedestrians, and it will go over 440. But that way staff can show you the exact location and answer all of your questions.
Thanks, Mitchell. Can I get in here for just a little bit? I'm going to try to take some of the questions that were raised in the chat, as well as to respond to some of the questions that came from the audience. First of all, Ted was right. The time to plan infrastructure is when you're planning to do a rezoning. They should go hand in hand, but they don't. City of Raleigh does not look at infrastructure before they look at the rezoning. They don't look at street structure. They don't look at complete streets. And that's why you wind up with some of the traffic problems that we wind up like in North Hills. That's got to change. Mitchell, that's a signal to you that perhaps there has to be more study, just as you would do with an ETJ, when you look to see if they have infrastructure support before you approve taking them into the city, which should work the same way with the rezoning. You have to look to see if the infrastructure is there before you approve whether the buildings are appropriate and the development is appropriate.
There is a section in all rezoning cases that analyzes infrastructure from water to sewer to traffic. Not everyone agrees with those conclusions, but that is part of every zoning case. So we understand the infrastructure demands for every single zoning case. Staff also looks at the cumulative impact because it's not just one-off rezoning, is what it means on an annual basis. And I know when I was planning director, we actually did that on an annual basis. We counted up all the approvals and the permits, but it's done on a case-by-case basis, and you can see that in each zoning case.
What I'm suggesting is it has to be more discussion before it gets to the rezoning situation. Having a staff presentation and a response from transportation, whether it's adequate or inadequate, is never to be judged. It's just facts laid out for you. It's not a public discussion. So I'm going to move out for that. We'll talk about that later. And I agree with you about the Midtown Bridge. There's a lot of misconceptions about the bridge. The Wake Forest interchange is going to be redeveloped probably into a diverging diamond by the state DOT. The missing mill, well, the bridge, the multimodal bridge, is not part of that discussion. They're two separate. You would think they'd be coordinated between the two, but at present time, they are not. Where the bridge is going to come into play is the rezoning that's going to take place, again, a cane rezoning, that's going to occur along Navajo Drive. I don't know what that plan is going to be. It's been rezoned. It's been rezoned for 20-story buildings. I don't know what his plan is. That's going to come out in the near future. It's supposed to have affordability. Don't know if it will. But those are the conditions that are outlined in that particular rezoning. But I just wanted to get into a few of the other things. There was a lot of questions about Quail Hollow Drive pushing through as a roadway to St. Albans. As far as I know, that's not going to happen. It is going to push through as a greenway. When the greenway comes up through the exchange property, It's supposed to come across St. Albans somehow, some kind of crossway, I guess, and then come up through that little wooded section onto Quail Hollow Drive. That's the current plan. Now, I understand Kane Realty is developing their own little greenway to run behind their property and come up probably where the traffic light is currently. And that'll access onto Hardimont. I don't know anything about that part. But the current plan for the greenway to connect is supposed to be through that little section off the end of Quail Hollow Drive as a greenway, not as a roadway. It can't support a roadway. It is floodland. And that should be developed. As far as getting people to the meeting, as far as to discuss the bridge, that would be great. We've invited them before. Hopefully that'll come in the near future. Some of the other questions, I'm trying to go through here. As far the presentation that was just made by Randy was excellent. And I think at this point, Randy's absolutely right. The pressure has to come towards Kane Realty, get them to correct what they're planning to do. The biggest problem we have with what the city did with the rezoning was they didn't follow city planning. And this is, I know councilors, I know you're listening, but that was the complaint. This building of tall buildings along the perimeter of the rezoning area is flat out against all of the planning that's in the comprehensive plan, the Midtown plan. And it just sends the wrong message. I know you can respond to that later on. I'll give you free will to do that. But that's what the biggest problem is. When you set a 20-story building right across from a neighborhood, that's where the problem starts. As Randy mentioned, when you have to put your dumpsters out on Lassiter Mill in a bike path for them to come and dump the dumpsters because they don't have a way to go into the building, the new Highlands, it sits out on the street on Lassiter Mill. I don't know how many days it sits there, but I've taken pictures of it just sitting there. And it's the wrong thing to have on a main corridor. It's intended for bikes and cars, not for dumpsters.
Not very neighborly, I should say.
You've got big posters with Kane's face on them that we last year.
All you have to do is look at the Highlands from across the street and you'll see the large garage doors open, the dumpsters sitting in the roadway on Lassiter Mill. And again, I don't know if they're only there trash day. I don't know if they're there all week. You know, have to go visit, find out. But either way, they shouldn't be allowed there.
Well, it's there's service trucks. It's not just dumpsters, service trucks. There's Bruce Chris is there. The Village Tavern is there. Restaurant. I mean, it looks to me like everybody's using that part of Lassiter Mill Road as their unloading area. I see semi trucks. I see service trucks. I see the dumpsters. And again, there's nothing to be done about it apparently. And the time to have something done about it is in the site plan when you say, where's your area where you're going to contain all your auxiliary services, auxiliary things that you need to have for a 12-story building. And a 20-story building, I don't know where that service area is going to be because it's complete streets and the existing developments right there. So it's just about having a dialogue. I don't want to take up any more time. I appreciate you listening. Yes, what can you do? It's like if I could use more bandwidth, I could use more brain power. Anybody who's interested in helping, let me know. Go to midtownneighborsunited.org. There's an email address, you can reach me that way. And I'd be happy to get people involved, but it's really, you know, I don't want it to be so episodic, you know, it's like the multimodal bridge, BRT, the development. I mean, I envision some more comprehensive, thoughtful planning for the future, which should involve a lot of people, not just a few people saying this is what your future is going to be. It should be, well, how does that future affect me? And that's all I'm asking for. Is it more of a dialogue and not where the staff goes behind closed doors and comes with recommendations back and forth, and then all of a sudden it's presented, and you know we get 3 minutes to respond to. That's not a dialogue.
I think what Randy's asking for, again, if you want to stay involved with the project, want to stay involved with the development of the rezoning, please join Randy's group. We could use all the help we can get.
Yeah, I hate to say I'm Midtown Neighbors United. I want many people in Midtown who are concerned about the future of the community. Either way, people think this is all, you know, that we're too far out of our minds, and we're not trying to oppose anything. I invite everybody in the community. It should, you know, come together. If we can come together as a community, then maybe we can bring other people in, the city, the developer, to have a real conversation and not just a hair on fire rezoning process that leaves the community completely unsatisfied.
Thank you, Randy. I'll make-
Thank you all.
Kathleen, I think we have a problem with the audience. Apparently, there are some people complaining about the audio. Is it me? Am I the problem?
No. Who's complaining about the audio?
Some of the people that are online.
Can you hear okay, Larry?
I can hear fine, but maybe I am the problem.
No, you're not the problem.
Okay.
But do you wanna go next to, Councilmember Silver?
That's what I would do next. Let's open up. We have next on the agenda are the counselors anyway. So let's open it up. Let Mitchell respond to what he's heard and give the updates. And Christina, I think I saw her walk in.
I don't think it's.
I will, my video is disabled, so I'll just use the audio. Good evening, everyone.
Yeah, I can hear you fine.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, everyone. I'm just going to first go through my updates. Don't have a lot to say about the Six Forks. I have a very different perspective. And anytime I hear, when people say we're not being heard, all of us, the council members, take time. I know for this particular case on Six Forks, there were well over 200 emails. Majority of people I heard from were in support. I know a lot of people didn't hear that. Where are they from? But the point is, I read all the emails, I read the concerns, I took that all in consideration. And I think there are times if a council member does not agree, people will say, you didn't hear me. We do. We just had a different perspective. And on this particular case, the council voted 6-2. I do not want to relitigate the case. They followed all the rules and procedures of their neighborhood meetings, the planning commission, the city council. And so from my perspective, the applicant did their due diligence on keeping the public informed. So beyond that, I don't have anything much more to share. The project was approved. I have no idea when that project's going to proceed, but now they have their entitlement, and then we will all be informed when their site plan process starts. But the public should know the site plan process is administratively approved. There is no public conversation about the site plan unless the applicant decides to share those plans with the public. In terms of my update, I wanted to focus on what is first and foremost before the city council, and that is the budget. We're facing a very, very difficult budget season. We're meeting practically weekly on parts of the budget, and so there is a substantial budget gap that the city administration is working on to fill, but there's a lot of concerns going forward with this year's budget. We did talk about the bonds. Right now, if you recall, the city is moving toward what's called a steady state bond. We're looking specifically at affordable housing and transportation. The bond should be somewhere around 203 million. That number would mean that there would be no property tax increase from the city. That is our goal for the steady state of about 203 million. And right now, we're looking to evenly split it between affordable housing and transportation, but that has not been decided. And so that was the conversation we had last week. Another thing everyone should certainly be aware of is that if you hadn't seen the presentation from Wake County tax assessors, I encourage you to watch that video. It was essentially an earthquake of information about the number of appeals and the impact certain projects that are now tax exempt that is substantially affecting Raleigh's tax base. It was very difficult for the council members to digest that information, but it was something that took us all by surprise. For whatever reason, a number of commercial properties were seeing a record number of appeals. The value of those appeals are quite substantial. The impact to the city of Raleigh will be in the millions of dollars. There's also something called a Blue Ridge loophole. This allows a certain property owner to own a property that could be deemed tax exempt, which means they would pay actually no taxes on that property. And brownfields is another update we received about how they can substantially reduce their tax liability if they redevelop a brownfields property. Collectively, this was troubling news for the city. And so we are trying to figure out how do we move forward with a tough budget year. The good news is the bond itself would have no property tax increase, but we don't know how to fill the other gap at this time. And so I encourage everyone to pay attention to the budget. It is something that is concerning all of the council members as well as the city administration. And we have to get this done by June. And so it's not the best news I can share with you, but it is news that we have to deal with and come up with a balanced budget by June. So there are some challenges before us, but we're all committed to make sure we do the right thing so that we continue to have the best city as possible for our residents, for our businesses, and for our visitors.
Mitchell, when was the report from the Wake County tax people? Was it a work
At the last
session?
council meeting.
Council meeting. Okay, thank you.
Yes, it's recorded. It was about a little way halfway through. I cannot begin to tell you that we were all in a state of shock, and some of us still have not recovered from that presentation. The General Assembly is also looking at some changes to the property tax. So we're watching that very carefully as well. But we want to make sure that we in the city have the ability to make the right decisions to maintain our quality of life and maintain a very healthy tax base so we can provide the services that make this city the great city that it is.
Larry, are we able to get a link to that assessor's report?
Yes, I will look it up tonight and I'll send everybody the link.
Okay.
I have nothing further to report. I don't know if my colleague is there, but that's it for my report. I can't stand too long because I have my grandchildren watching them this evening. So they took a short break until I jumped on this call.
Well, I'm glad we moved you up in the agenda this time.
I appreciate it too.
I don't think Christina is here. So, thank you very much.
Yeah, my
Over.
last point, people, I heard Randy talk a lot about planning. I think all of you know that I was a plan director that came up with the 2030 plan. We had to figure out how to accommodate 170 to 200,000 people, 170,000 to 200,000 people by 2030. And we did that by identifying growth centers throughout our city, 8 of them, and multimodal corridors. Our recommendations were that 70% of all of our growth should be in those 8 growth centers. And it turned out 70% of all of our growth were in those growth centers, downtown, Midtown, Briar Creek, Wake Med. We identified those locations, and I'm very pleased that we followed the plan. We're now embarking on a 2050 plan when we anticipate another 200 to 250,000 people coming to this city. There are some very difficult choices. There'll be some places that'll need to go vertical and urbanize. And so residents need to work with us to pay attention. Not that we don't want the growth, where should the growth go? And with that, I agree with Larry. We have to have a conversation about infrastructure. That was in the 2030 plan, and it should continue to the 2050 plan. So that is some of the challenges that the city is facing. I heard David Ulmer made a point about taxable property. If you look at that presentation, there are certain projects that yield a significant tax base, which helps keep our taxes as homeowners low. And so we try to balance making sure we provide for additional development, but also keep our taxes stable. That's a balancing act that we at council have to do. And so we look at our rezonings for comp plan consistency, but one of the public benefits is now we're getting the tax base we need to keep our services up to date.
Let me just follow that up real quick in that the Midtown area is the largest tax generator for the city outside of downtown.
Correct.
We know that. It's a fact. The problem is that the infrastructure that should carry along with it has not gotten any of that investment money. It goes back into the city coffers, doesn't get spent in Midtown. And that's the discussion I think has to happen for the future.
And that's a capital expenditure conversation. And I agree with you. For this round, it'll be 100 million. We go higher, we'll have to go to the voters to say we're going to have to contemplate a property tax increase. So as I said, it's a balancing act. The county has, I believe, a large bond coming in for schools. Don't know what else for libraries or whatever else. So we have to be very sensitive to the impact to our property taxpayers, that how much can they handle? And so we try to do that in a way that's fair and logical, but I agree with you, Larry.
Thank you. Thanks, Mitchell.
Unless there are other questions for me, I'm gonna depart to tend to my little ones.
Okay. Thanks for joining us.
No questions in the room.
All right, thank you.
Larry, did you want to go to David next?
Yeah, let's do that. If Christina's not there, if Christina pops online or shows up, we'll just address it later. And I don't think we ever heard from Sergeant Garcia either. So.
Oh,
I'm gonna share. All right. Good evening, everyone.
are you gonna share your screen?
Yeah, it's trying to let me. Try again. This is worse. My name is David Reaugh. I'm not a lawyer and I don't play well on TV. But just want to give you a quick update of Anderson, Oakland, acres, missing middle case. We were here, I don't know, 6 months ago or so. We've been looking at this since last June. Who I am, I've lived in Anderson, Florida since 1987. I'm on the corner of Anderson and Six Forks. I see every accident that occurs at that corner every night from my house. So one of the reasons why that we're talking about this is because I'll just go to the slide to actually walk through it. So there we go. Okay, so what we're gonna do is we talk about some updates. So a little bit of missing middle because everyone wonders what that is. We have a website, we have a petition, we have a flyer. There were a few back there. If you'd like to join our petition, that'd be great. We've got 600 and a lot of people now, so that's pretty good. And then kind of just some updates about what's going on. This is just a picture of what we're talking about. So this is Anderson Forest. This is Oakland Acres. These are the two lots that they're looking to put 17 townhomes on, 3-story buildings, right in the middle of, obviously, neighborhoods. Anyway, so what is missing middle? Missing middle was basically, in summary, 2022, the city council basically made a small text change, which allowed R4, which is normal residential acreage, to go to R10 with an administrative review, the same review that he was talking about when you're talking about site plans and so forth. You could basically have a piece of property, you could submit to the city, follow all the rules that the city gives you, which aren't sometimes that easy, sometimes they are. And then all of a sudden a bulldozer shows up and you never knew about it. Almost. When you do rezoning, everybody within a certain period or a certain distance, I don't know what that distance is, but you know, hundreds and hundreds of meters, if not miles, have to know what's going on, there's signs. With missing middle, only within 200 feet of the property do people have to be notified. So you get a letter in the mail, and that's about it. So this has been happening all over the city. Very few of these have turned into affordable housing. This one is looking at 17 total townhomes, 3-story, 2 of which would have to be lower income. Okay, so
Two what?
2 of 17, 2 of the units,
2 units.
2 units out of
Okay.
17.
Yeah, and they're gonna be so comfortable.
So 2 townhomes went across the street over here. Right here, those aren't lots anymore. Those are 2 townhomes. Those are renting for $8,000 a month. Sure. So it's affordable, right? Very affordable. And again, I mean, I'll give you the caveat, I build things for a living, I build buildings, okay? And I believe in good growth and good development, I mean, it's how I pay my bills, right? But putting townhomes in the middle of the neighborhood doesn't seem to be that. So why it matters? So this one's special, so there's probably 10, 12, maybe 20 missing middle cases going on, everyone's heard about Hayes Barton, that one's been delayed for 3 years. So in 2008 and 2015, they did rezoning for these two properties, and both of those failed. Okay, and they failed due to traffic, they failed due to watershed, they failed, you know, they were unable to get them rezoned. And this is the same property, the same conditional buyout, but they were able to slip it through with missing middle so far. Okay. It's a very dangerous road. Like I said, we have T-bone accidents at that intersection once every 2 weeks. There have been, I think someone did the traffic study, and it is the highest accident intersection inside the city. So.
Well, to push back on that, you didn't show up in the Vision Zero project, right?
What?
So transportation just agreed council in the last month on Vision Zero, which is where they identify the high traffic incident areas, all the ones especially that result in injuries, and your intersection was not in that report that you're referring to at Anderson. Just so you know, it wasn't there.
Really?
Transportation department did not flag it at all. I watched the entire 50 minutes and it
Well, I mean,
but you weren't there as far as an intersection of concern.
Absolutely.
I'm just saying, that's fine, but the city isn't tracking your intersection.
No, but the DOT is.
Yeah, somebody dropped it along the way,
Yeah,
accident.
I mean, the DOT is, and the DOT's
It's
statistics.
a state road.
So, fairness, I get it's a state road, I actually know a little bit more, but you should go back and look at the Vision Zero, because Raleigh didn't flag it as an intersection of concern. If it's a concern to you, that's great, but you might want to go back then to Mitchell and go, why isn't my high accident intersection in Vision Zero?
Absolutely happy to do that,
Yeah.
you know, but, thank you. I mean, honestly, it's like, I'm not arguing with you on.
Well, I'm not arguing with you either, I'm pointing out that the city has not flagged your intersection there as one of concern, so if it is, you might want to figure out what the disconnect is with your.
Well, we've been trying to figure out what the disconnect is for a lot of things, so
Yes.
go on. So what you can do is, if you want to sign our petition, feel free, give you, there's a petition page, there's a flyer in the back. So updates. So the developer has filed for this to go through 3 times. They have failed all 3 times. And most of it has to do with stormwater and engineering, and the engineering side is the traffic side. So stormwater, you're gonna get a little bit of an update right after me. Currently, we're at the top of the hill. This is currently less than 10% permeate or impervious surfaces. It's going to turn into 90%. So there has to be a very good stormwater system in order for that not to run all the way down through our neighborhood, flooding our houses and going into the creek. And we already have people that have had to move their air conditioner units along this path in order to not, you know, lose them during the floods. So 2 things have been blocking it. Those are the 2. We've been told that the Raleigh City has accepted the stormwater changes that have been put out there. We have not seen an update in the portal. We've also been told that they have an agreement to buy 2 more properties along 6 Forks that would make this even bigger, which is probably why it hasn't been resubmitted since January. So we don't know what's coming yet. We don't know whether that's going to 30. They get 1 more property, they'll have a whole entire block, which would actually make it look better. But so we haven't seen anything since January 9th, other than some rumors that we've heard. So current plans, I mean, again, you've got neighborhood, and these 2 lots right here is where they're looking to put them. One other thing is, you know, again, for our case, we probably, even if they redid missing middle today, it probably wouldn't affect our case because we were in before that, but it could affect other ones. So when we were at the last CAC meeting, Stormy said that when they put missing middle in, they expected for, you know, individual owners to sell their property or be able to build multifamily on those properties and sell. They didn't think that developers were gonna use this as a way to get large areas of land for profit. So we need to kind of follow up on that, just as an organization, I mean, just as people, so that we can get this updated. They all sat up here and 3 out of 5 of them said they wanted to update it to make it better. So we can help them with that. That's what I got. Any questions?
So I have a question. So Randy touched on it. I mean, so New Bern, they did start the BRT. That came with the transportation overlay district. Western's getting theirs. I mean, just long term, whether this happened or not, I just don't. Does the room understand that that area, you're gonna get a transportation overlay district in the next 2 to 6 years? It's going to be a massive upzoning of that whole portion of Sixth Ward. And it is unavoidable and unstoppable. As much as we may talk about it, it's going to happen.
No, I mean, our Anderson Forest neighborhood is going to be the only neighborhood on Sixth Forks that has houses in it in the next 10 years. Understood. Okay, but they allow people to build townhomes instead of buildings when they wanted to put buildings all up and down Sixth Forks. Now, in '87, when we moved here, remember, Sixth Forks was a 4-lane road. All they did was repaint it to get 5, and they don't really have any lot of distance on either side right now. And they already gave up on the Sixth Forks corridor plan because it got too expensive over how many years of developing it. So we understand that that is the plan. And again, city's gonna get bigger, it's gotten a lot bigger. But that particular piece about Sixth Forks getting expanded to be that way, I'm not really worried about that in the next, I don't know how many years. Because it's been a 5-lane road for a very long time and there's nowhere for it to go. Okay. I mean, if you approve this missing middle case and you build all these apartments, where's the road gonna go?
The road's not gonna get wider.
Right.
The road's not gonna get wider. They'll force it in BRT. They will shoehorn it in. I mean, we disagree on that. The people who are spearheading a lot of these projects, they've been very consistent with their messaging if you do listen to them. And you can see what they want to do. You can see them coming up Atlantic past the Ironworks. You can see them making a left turn, marching up Sixth Forks and connecting to Midtown. And if you don't understand that, that will happen. Now, the timing, you can talk about years, you can talk about how messy the development is. I'm not saying it's going to be this clean, wonderful project. It'll be in fits and starts and delays, but that is the plan. And I understand that you don't want these townhomes, but that whole area, that corridor, the stuff, if you go down to the intersection, that's gonna just change dramatically.
Oh yeah, it's all coming up, even up from Snoopy's on down, that's all gonna change.
I get it.
It's just time.
Yeah.
And at the moment, we're just not, we just don't want townhomes in our backyard.
Thing is the traffic, because there's no stoplight for that subdivision on the other side, and there's not a stoplight for the potential townhouses that will be behind your house. So how does DOT plan to manage that?
So in 2008 and 2015, one of the reasons why this went away was also because DOT impact basically said, okay, if you want to do this, we're not about taking private property and not allowing you to access a road. But what we are going to require you is to make these modifications to Sixth Forks to make it safer. Okay, and that was way too expensive. There's still a chance that if this stays this way, that will still be way too expensive. Okay, because that's a lot. I mean, if people saw in front of Guthrie's, all they did is they put in some plastic cones or whatever. It's going to be a lot different in this particular area because you have a blind curve that's going around the corner.
Yeah, there is a blind curve.
So they're not going to add a light at Oakland. They're not going to do that. So again, it's just discussion and talking. And I would like to see something better than 17 townhomes that aren't going to be affordable in our backyard. We know something's going to go there eventually, but this isn't it.
Other questions for David? Larry, any comments? You're on mute.
David, thank you. I appreciate the update, and we'll just continue to stay plugged in and see what happens next. Sounds like the state has to get involved is what more I'm listening to it. Look again at those improvements that were slated for years ago and get them to look at them again.
So did you have somebody planning on speaking about the Big Branch Greenway?
I assume it's going to be Helen or Jane.
Helen? Who's speaking?
Big Branch.
Okay,
Yeah.
here she comes.
I'm Jane Huband, and I live in Anderson Forest, where they're planning on putting a greenway in our backyards, very close to my back deck, which of course we lose a lot of privacy. But our big concerns are, and I thought I might give you kind of a recap of what our concerns are and what the city's position has been on it. And I do agree with a lot of you that there's never any dialogue with the city. It's a one-way street. And when I give my talk, I prepared it like I do for city council, where you have 1, 2, or 3 minutes, and you talk as fast as you can until you're out of breath. So if I don't do this well, it's just that I'm used to rushing through it, and you feel like you haven't had eye contact, you haven't made any points with anybody, you're just high and dry there. But there is no back and forth communication. If you could just say, here's a question I have. There's a fallacy in what you're presenting, but you can't do that. And so here's a little history on this. Anderson Forest residents, what we do is we continue to speak to city council meetings to oppose their decision to put this greenway on Big Branch that runs through our backyards very close to our houses. This month, I spoke to the council on the fact that a greenway on this stream would violate 3 sets of rules and regulations. These rules and regulations are to protect a fragile and eroding stream that is important in preserving the water quality for residents of our city and for environmental protection. The first thing we have of rules, laws, or regulations is there is a conservation easement on our property. It's legally binding. It was given to the city and accepted by them in the 1980s. The terms of the easement prohibit any removal of natural vegetation along the creek in our yards or any impervious surface. Such specifically, the conservation easement says not a greenway. Now they wish to violate that. Now, if you and I wanted to violate, I gave the example, if I was in the middle of 6 Forks going by North Hill Shopping Center and I just wanted to run the red light, there are repercussions for that, but the city does what it wants. The second rules or regulations they'll violate are the state riparian buffer rules for the Neuse River Basin. These rules protect, supposedly, Big Branch Creek and require a 50-foot natural buffer where, again, for 30 feet of it, especially you can't have an impervious surface on it. And this is a state regulation. So, however, the NC Division of Water Quality has the authority to grant a variance to these rules, but only if there are no other alternatives. The city itself presented other alternatives in the survey, and there are even more than that. So we do think there's a little bit of wiggle room there. Thirdly, the greenway construction here would violate the city's own greenway guidelines. It is not just Anderson Forest residents that oppose this location. The City Council's Park, Recreation, and Greenway Advisory Board that advises them on issues like this voted 9-5 not to recommend to council this location for the greenway. Those board members are environmentalists and park and greenway advocates who understand the purposes of the rules and regulations protecting that stream. The council ignored their own advisory board's concerns and voted to choose this alternative. I asked council if any member was an environmentalist who would understand the rules for these, reason for these rules, and none of them replied. At the last council meeting, we spoke, Elizabeth did, on the cost of this route. The bond referendum allocated $4,448,000 for 3 segments of the Greenway, ours being 1. So that was a total of $4.5 million. There are so many costs that will add to this construction budget, including land acquisitions, which they didn't even realize they didn't have an easement to build a greenway on the property when they did the first survey. There will have to be a bridge that comes down from 6 Forks down into the floodplain, and it will maybe 120 feet. That will go partly in my backyard. So, and it will have to be handicap available. So it's going to be complicated. Then there's a bridge. This was a ramp. It would be 120 feet. Then there's a bridge that has to cross over, back over the stream, which we know that a bridge is not a cheap construction, into the neighborhood adjacent to us. That was another route that would not involve that much cost that they chose not to have. This one segment of the Greenway could push the total cost of these Greenway projects to $11 million instead of the $4,448,000. Doesn't seem to bother them. One of the, I don't know if it was the advisory board, I think it was, who said, hey, this project budgeted for $4.5 million could be as much as $10 million. And that seemed nothing to them when we have a budget deficit. It's unreasonable. Is it wise use of funds when there are other far cheaper alternatives available and ones that do not violate a conservation easement on the state or the state's water quality regulations? The city has so many acute needs, such as housing, roads, safety, law enforcement, and many other things. Spend extra money on these first. On several occasions, staff said they plan to stay within the budget. We have obtained information through a public records request that tells a different story. Second page. Am I speaking too fast? We also spoke at the last city council meeting describing how city staff manipulated images and used biased public surveys to cause both citizens and the council to choose this route. It's not just my opinion that these were biased. City council's own park, recreation, and greenway called city staff out for such misleading photoshopping images and biased surveys. And still council voted for it. One of them told me, I trust staff, but the problem had really been that the city didn't know they did not have a greenway easement early in planning. And so they embarked on this, spent a whole lot of money. And once we told them, we informed them that it was only a scenic easement, it was not a greenway easement, then they had spent so much money on it, they couldn't back down. Another significant item not mentioned in their surveys and presentations were the intense flash floods we have on that stream. They occur in a narrow, deep channel right behind our house, and it can flood, I think it's probably about 8 feet quickly. Last year we had a rainstorm upstream from us, probably a mile or a couple of miles. And within 9 minutes, we were in flood stage. 9 minutes, and there are logs floating down it. I've had somebody's swing set placed in our yard. The waters, you'd have to see them to know how powerful they are, but they are. And one of the Greenway men said that he would never let his grandchildren play in that yard if there was any sign of rain anywhere along that corridor, because he had come out and looked at it and it was swift and turbulent. There's no time to notify unsuspecting Greenway users of potential dangers. City said that they would come out and they would respond quickly and come put a sign on 6 Forks not to go down this street.
And they,
And post it on their website.
Yeah, and post it on their website. Yeah, right. I check that every time I go on the Greenway.
and those bridges will wash out, any
Yeah.
construction they do.
It is really pathetic.
Let's work together to get the city to listen to existing residents. When the city proposes such project, I mean, we're all in the same boat, kind of. They're not hearing us in spite of what Silver said. They don't hear us. They glaze over. They do what they want to. Where is the concern for existing residents instead of being bigger, better, attracting more people? Where do we come in? Aren't we important too? The city just this week sent a team to survey our properties for the Greenway without asking our permission. That's called trespassing. Another indication of their treatment of existing citizens. One of our residents asked them to leave. We will continue to speak at city council meetings and to oppose this decision and to use all legal options available to us and hope that we can get together with a lot of public support from everyone who is in the same boat as we are, whether it's Missing Middle, whether it's North Hills development, whether it's downtown where you have buildings overshadowing the historic district. So let's all try to make our voice heard.
Just a couple of things about the financing.
Sure.
In September, we were at the Greenway Committee meeting, and the crowd asked the city staff if there was any cost estimates for this project. And they told us it was not, but they assured us that they could keep the entire connector project within the $4.48 million budget. I submitted a public records request to which I received a cost estimate dated a month before that meeting that said that it would be, 4.48 is the bond allocation. It was saying that the cost to run a greenway just in segment 1B, which includes the route behind our house, would be over 4.8 million. And that did not include surveying, engineering, construction, administration, a number of different costs. And did not have costs for the 2 other segments that were supposed to be in this part of the bond allocation project. There were 3 segments altogether. So then in February, I sent another public record request. This is for the whole project, and got back a forecast of 8.65 million for the whole project that was supposed to be completed for $4.48 million, the entire project. And that, as Jane said, does not include any litigation costs for eminent domain or other litigation that goes on. And so that really well could put this project over $11 million. And so there are other routes that could be taken that will not threaten Big Branch Creek and that will cost far less. And we are just hoping that the city will see reason and think when they spend our hard-earned tax-paying dollars about what they're doing and what they are spending for.
Especially since they have such a budget shortfall. I mean, that.
No, I'm just curious, so why do you think they're pushing for it? Right, I mean, people don't do things for no reason. So if you tell somebody it's gonna cost twice as much and it's not popular and they're not getting a lot of support. So clearly somebody or some group has some real determination to get this done.
Well, maybe it's Kane who is doing a Big Branch Greenway over here, and they want.
That was a question, that was an answer.
Let me tell you how I found out that this is a project. They were doing a sewer improvement through our backyards. And we worked with the city on that. I think everybody was very cooperative on that, knowing it needed to be done. Talking to somebody with the city, he said, these darn Greenway people, they keep calling me, wanting to know when we're gonna be finished. They want to come in here and plot the Greenway on top of our work. Well, apparently the city people looked at a GPS and saw a green stripe.
Yeah.
A green strip along, and that's our conservation easement that we've had in Anderson Forest since the 80s. It's a scenic conservation easement. We've abided by those terms for over 40 years to leave our land along the stream in a natural state. And they saw that and assumed that they could build a greenway there. They conducted first public meetings, and the first public survey said that the greenway development would follow the greenway easement. But the easement specifically is for conservation purposes only. So they had spent several $100,000 on this project before Elizabeth said to the city, hey, you can't do this. It's prohibited.
But they
And it took them,
the
city took it.
Right or wrong, you provided a real answer. I understand you're providing context for the litigation. I've heard you speak this several times.
Yeah.
You at least gave an honest answer, which is just why I was curious what your opinion was as to why this is happening.
Well, we really don't know. But
And that is sort of my point. Somebody clearly has a real motivation to get this done.
Well, they've named this Big Branch. They've also said that it's appeared in city plans back as far as the 70s.
And 76, which is absolute.
It's not in there.
Utter, it's not there.
They want some part of it on Big Branch. And this will only be 1,200 feet.
And it could be 4.5 million and much more.
I mean, and the city never said that 800 feet is along Six Forks Road to get to our 1,200.
So,
and then once you leave our neighborhood, you got that almost that much again, a steep incline to get to Wake Town. It's a poor route.
But Big Branch does bring you up right here for correct.
Right, I mean, this section requires a bridge to connect to Northville. So if you, right now, if you build this, it will go nowhere.
Right.
Until that bridge goes across.
For the multimodal.
It will
So if you think about it, it kind of shoehorns in, we gotta spend the $80 million on that bridge. And then it connects the rest of the city to Northville.
I appreciate you pointing that out. I just want to make sure somebody else was crafting that. I know some people, this gentleman here just talked about, having to look forward, and I will rebut Larry. Patrick Martin for the longest time tried to get neighborhood conservation overlay districts in this part of the city, and it's all backfired. And Quail Hollow, you can finish that little part. It may be zoned only for a greenway, but roads can come up 6 feet in the air. It's the north-south, when you look at this area, the north-south lane that goes through is Quail Hollow. And if you look at where Big Branch comes in, it looks about where the multimodal. So, I mean, it doesn't take Albert Einstein or even a developer to kind of look and say, well, this is probably what they want 15 years, maybe 10 years, whatever it's going to be. This is what they being the city planning, want to allow Midtown to begin to grow south. So I'm not arguing right or wrong. I'm just pointing out that sometimes in these rooms, people don't see where other people are putting a big picture together, and that is the big picture that I've heard numerous people lay out. Like, hey, this would be what it should look like in 12 years.
Well, there are other connected possibilities.
Yeah.
Several. And I think some
And
of
the
the,
city, that's.
I know, I'm not saying it's right or wrong, I'm just.
Yeah.
I mean, it was,
Seems to be what they're doing.
it's been presented sort of like, if this isn't done, the project won't take place. You know, they won't have a connector, but there'll be a connector. It just doesn't have to go here.
Correct.
I mean, I have no doubts about what you're saying, but there'll be a connector, but it doesn't need to go through a dangerous floodplain.
That's.
You guys are all having a great discussion, and I think it could continue for quite some time. There are a few facts that perhaps everybody ought to be aware of. The Greenway, first of all, is outlined in the Midtown area plan. That plan was signed off by council in 2020. I don't think this Greenway existed before that. I'd be surprised if it did. But the point is, even though they claim that the Greenway pathway has to be completed because it's in the Midtown area plan, the path that was chosen by council is not the path that was selected through the Midtown area plan. And that had a lot of public consensus before it was published. It was supposed to go through, and I can't remember the name of the street, but it was one of the third choice, I think, one that's farthest east. But since then, since the last couple of years, there's a development coming in along, is it Crabtree, I guess? What's the one? Hodges. There's a development that's going to be built along Hodges. And the city, in cooperation with the developer, is going to put a bridge across Crabtree Creek to bring one side in together with the other side. It's a natural place to build a greenway from and go right up Industrial Drive. And at some point, again, a missing bridge, there was supposed to be a bridge either going under or over, more than likely under the Beltline to connect where Wake Tech is, because it's a very valuable asset for all the people that ride their bikes to Wake Tech, and it gives them easy transport. So the point is, there's a lot of other avenues that should have been looked at, should still be looked at. And I think maybe the resolution to this is to get enough counselors together to get them to take some kind of action to appropriate look at it, and not just depend on the actions that were taken by council over the objections of the Greenway Committee. That's why we keep bringing you guys back, so you can keep stating your case. Your case was excellent tonight. Couple of minor points. Elizabeth, would you identify yourself for the record?
Yes, Elizabeth Scott, Anderson Drive, and Anderson Forest.
Great. Have you signed in?
Yes, I have.
Okay, great. And a suggestion for everybody else that wants to speak, just identify yourself, please, for the record. I think we've come to the end, and we have some time. Chuck, do you want to get up and quickly say something about the Green Street project on Quail Hollow Drive? We're going to have that same discussion, though, next month, so I appreciate it. Keep it brief.
Yeah, just briefly, a lot of folks there, I think in the meeting, or a number of them had signed on to the letter opposing the 2-lane cycle track along Quail Hollow Drive, and that correspondence was sent to the city. Have about 60 co-signers on that letter now, and I got a couple of thank you for your comments from a few city council members, and that's the last I've heard. And again, requested counts on bicycles and never received that from the city. So I went ahead and set up a game cam on Quail Hollow Drive up near my house. And some people say no bicycles go on Quail Hollow. Well, after monitoring 83 hours over a number of weeks and weekends also, we came up with an average of about 6 to 7 bicycles per day, considering a 12-hour day on the weekdays, and weekend average about 9 per day. So that's not exactly a huge demand for bicycle travel on the street. But I'll continue taking some more samples over the next couple weeks before we hit April. And again, just thanks for everybody who signed on to that. Everybody's been asking me, what's the city's response to it? And when they ask me, I say no response whatsoever. But thanks for the time this evening. Appreciate it.
Thanks,
Catch
Chuck.
you next month on it.
Yeah, and hopefully we'll have multiple parties. I don't think the city will show up, but there are a couple of people that represent some of the bike associations as well as
Oh,
bikers,
excellent.
and like to get it to be a multi-part discussion, and then we'll see as we move on from that. But it's important enough to have as an agenda item next month.
All right. Appreciate your work on that.
Mm-hmm. I think we've reached the end of our agenda. Christina is not in the audience, and Christina is not online. So I guess we'll follow up with her. Is there anything from the audience that you'd like to bring up? We have a little time.
The police officer ever make it?
What was that?
No place.
Do we know what happened?
Sergeant Garcia did not come.
There's a whole bunch of cop cars there, and they were measuring and laser sights and all kinds of stuff.
The Eastgate Park,
No, Eastgate Shopping Center,
which obviously,
by Thai House, Thai, whatever, it's Thai Twist. Yeah, I think it was Saturday.
No, well, he's certainly done with that by now.
Yeah, we go.
I couldn't find anything online, I looked.
I will ask Sergeant Garcia for a report and put that out along with our usual minutes in the video that'll shortly follow.
Hey, Larry,
Yeah.
are we going to have, the candidates were sitting there saying, oh, okay, we're gonna discuss missing middle and all that. Are we gonna bring those people back that won their heats before early voting and really pin them down as to their goals? Because we need to get people in there that are listening to us, and seriously, that's not happening. So do we have that planned before early voting for the fall?
Yes, that I intend to do that. We've had candidate forums before where we've asked them very specific questions. We've tried to get them to address local issues. Yes, that is on my agenda to do. Probably, let's see, probably in September, I guess. Like that's when we did it before.
Yeah, because early voting's October, but
Yeah,
to get it done early enough that we can start, early enough, we know who's running now, and to pin, them against each other and say, okay, exactly, you said, what are we going to do about this? Everybody has the same problem. They don't listen, they get something going, they're spending money they don't have. What is their plan to fix that? Because I think we made a big impact with Livable Raleigh on the election.
Yeah.
I think we did. And we need to follow up on that. That's the only way to fix this.
Well, last month's meeting also had an effect on them because I actually heard from several of them this month. I copied them on the meeting, and a couple of them had conflicts, but they would have been here. So now I know we have their interests, so it'll be very easy to bring them back for September. And we'll try to do it early enough before they get essentially bombarded with requests to do more candidate forums. So we should have been a little earlier before. I guess I am getting a little sunburned. Okay, anything else from the audience? Well, I
Nothing.
appreciate. Go ahead.
Nothing.
Okay, don't hear any inputs. Well, thank you for showing up tonight. I appreciate you taking the time to come, especially in person. And David, appreciated your extra input on most matters tonight. Always welcome to comment. And I'll see everybody but when I get back and next month. And have yourselves a great time.